What's up, everyone? Welcome to our review discussion of Dragon Age Inquisition. I'm Vince Ingenito. I'm the one who reviewed the game, and I'm joined with my two friends, Justin Davis.
Hey.
And Naomi Kyle.
Hi.
How you guys doing?
Good.
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
I'm excited to talk about Dragon Age. Oh my goodness.
Me too.
Gracious.
It's all I've talked about for like the last couple of weeks of my life, and I still can't wait to talk more about it, which in and of itself I think says a lot about the game.
I've been bottling it all up. Save it for the review discussion.
Cool, so let's jump in. The first thing I wanted to kind of get to, because this is a topic that was near and dear to my heart, is so Dragon Age 1, which... Origins, right? Which is, it's very old school RPG-ish, very Baldur's Gate-esque, especially if you played on PC and you had the top-down tactical view. Then you had Dragon Age 2, which felt, very console-y, more action-oriented.
Yeah, at the time, Dragon Age 2 got good reviews, and Naomi like it a lot. But,
I liked it a lot.
But, as more time has passed, people have sort of, I don't know if soured on it's too strong. It's definitely seen as a setback for the franchise.
Sure, absolutely. Though there are many people who just find what the first one was doing to be kind of completely drab and boring. And like for you, for instance, like you played 10 hours, right, of the original or so, and you didn't feel it, right?
I did. I've tried to play Dragon Age Origins several times over the years. I pick it up, start it. All right, this is the summer. I'm gonna get through Dragon Age.
I'm gonna get into it now.
It's just like I like RPGs. I genuinely do. Dragon Age Inquisition, I want to make sure I say out loud, is my game of the year so far.
Cool.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And this is coming from someone that Dragon Age Origins, I was just bored. I would always get through sort of, I mean, we can spoil Origins, right?
Yeah.
I would get
spoilers for Origins.
I would get through the prologue, and then I would get through sort of the first major section of the game, and then I'm just bored. Like, like the Bioware's been getting better and better about the dialogue being more dynamic and the camera kind of moving around. But in Origins, it's just a thing of like people standing
just
there,
people, it's
staring
just
at each other,
floating
waiting for
heads,
the
right?
answer.
In terms of gameplay, though. Naomi, you like 2 a lot, and 2 was known, if nothing else, for being a little more actiony than 1 was.
It felt more like Mass Effect, in other words.
Exactly, right.
And part of the reason why I liked it, I think. Although I didn't play Origins, so I don't know. I can't, compare the two. But yeah, I felt like 2 had more action. I mean, I definitely related to the characters a lot more. Like, I fell in love with Varric and like my team, and there was a lot of cool, really cool, interesting plot points and things like that were happening. And just the world exploration, I thought it was, broken up perfectly, the different maps that you go to and like find out your missions through the maps. And
now, what I'm curious is, though, now Dragon Age Inquisition, in terms of combat, in terms of combat and in terms of just RPG mechanics, do you feel like it feels very similar to 2? Like, as a 2-player who didn't really have a frame of reference with 1, like, do you feel at home in 2?
I don't.
It
took me a while to get into it because the gameplay is different. You're using RT to like do your attacks, and you can like hold it, and it'll just keep attacking. It was a lot of the A smashing in Dragon Age 2, I remember. And switching between characters much easier in Dragon Age Inquisition, I gotta say. But
do you use the tactical camera a lot?
So that's the thing I'm trying to get used to, because Dragon Age 2 didn't have that. It was really just like you're picking your characters, you're telling them what to do, and you're like facing them, and you see them, as if you're in your third-person character.
That's interesting. And so Inquisition is more of like a hybrid of the original was very sort of slow-paced and tactical, and 2 was very action-oriented, and 3 is sort of like a mash of the two put together.
Yeah, it's like I feel like if you made a line, kind of a sliding scale where it's like here's 1 in the more tactical kind of old school BioWare RPG territory, and here's 2. I feel like Inquisition is like here. I feel like it feels very close to 1 to me in terms of its combat.
I think part of that, I'm playing on normal, which is a good difficulty for me, and I'm able to get through all the normal mobs without pausing.
Right.
Like I'm an archer, and I just sort of hold down RT and mash at them with my arrows, and I use my cooldowns and stuff. I'm managing that.
Sure.
But then on bosses, I have to stop, switch to the tactical view, and like really plan it out and make sure I'm, getting my mages away from the front lines and make sure we're all focusing and burning down a specific enemy. So for me, normal is the exact right difficulty to play on, and I suspect that if you were playing on hardcore Nightmare, like it would not.
You need to always be using the tactical.
Yeah, I would imagine you need to like be retreating and like much more tactical in that way.
And me, I enjoy that mode of play so much. The tactics oriented, this kind of being the puppeteer.
Yeah.
I enjoy that so much that I played that almost. I played I'm sorry, not Origins. I played Inquisition almost exclusively like that. Even when I felt like I didn't have to, I felt like I was managing my resources more efficiently if I was just doing it mostly all myself. Like every time someone took a lot of damage and had to swig a potion, I felt like I'm a failure. I failed my men.
Sure.
You shouldn't have had to drink that potion.
Yeah.
It is worth pointing out that even outside of combat, Dragon Age or Inquisition rather is more actiony. One of the big things is you have a jump button. Right?
That is
absolutely.
crazy.
Yeah. The way you interact with the world definitely feels a lot
Yeah.
more organic in that way.
Like my wife is not a huge gamer, but she'll play a couple games a year, and she said this looks a lot like Skyrim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's actually it's like Skyrim in the sense there's elves and dragons and stuff, but you have a party and you're managing. You're not just one dude.
It's not as open world.
Yeah,
either.
but that's a totally valid like connection for her to make. Like you're running through a fantasy world, jumping over rocks and stuff. I'm doing the thing where I'm trying to scale the cliff face rather than go around.
You're jumping or you're walking slowly because somehow walking slowly allows you to like get up grades that you normally wouldn't be able to. And
so that combination of just RPG, sort of old school RPG, pause, pull the camera up, but then still be able to explore the world in not first person, but right behind your character's back and sort of get really into that world is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point about the scale of it not being quite as large.
Just the fact that it's not
say
open
Skyrim,
world.
compared to Skyrim.
I mean, I think it's still a restricted area for the most part.
I mean,
it's not.
They're not. So all the sandboxes, they're not connected. There's 10 of them. Okay. They're very large, but they're not connected. But compared to other open world games, pure open world games, not as large. But what I do love though is that compared to Origins and especially Dragon Age 2.
Dragon Age 2 is really closed in.
Right, and this feels so much more. I feel like I'm on an adventure, and that's exactly how I want to feel.
Like I was
when
jumping
I
through
play
forests
an RPG.
and going in areas that I never would be able to if it was Dragon Age 2.
And even 110 hours later, I'm still exploring and finding new nooks and crannies. But
exactly.
So I mean, I had some overall feelings about the story that honestly didn't necessarily represent the majority in terms of the reviews out there. Mm-hmm. I was actually pretty unimpressed with the overall plot. Maybe not the story as a whole, the characters and the world I like, but the A to B of how we got through all the events was kind of tenuous for me. But you guys are a little bit earlier in the game than I was when I finished it.
Like that's the thing. Like you are how many over 100 hours?
I'm over 100 hours in. Yeah.
And so I can't really say like maybe I'm gonna be the same as you when I get to the end of this journey. You feel the same way. But so far, I would say I'm much more impressed with the story than what I've heard from you. I like sort of the big picture plot. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody.
Sure, right.
The big question is your character has this mark and can do special things that no one else in the world can do, which is a thing RPGs have done a million times.
Right.
But what I love about it is that you don't know whether that's given to you by a god or not. Like you don't know whether it's divine, and so that's
but everyone thinks it is.
Yeah, that's like a big mystery, and that's interesting. And so it takes this RPG trope and like puts it in a new, unique direction of like. You doubt yourself, like, I don't know why I have this power, but these people are counting on me.
Yeah.
And so I sort of feel like it makes you feel sort of isolated as a leader of this group, and I love that dynamic.
And it's interesting, too, because when you think about it, usually the leader of these groups is always like I'm the ultimate badass, and I know I am. I'm just so powerful, and I've trained so hard, and I'm so great.
Dragon Age 2 felt a lot like that.
Yes, I was going to ask, how do you feel, like you really liked the story in Dragon Age 2, right?
I did. I mean, I like the fact that in Dragon Age 2, you had your sister who was a mage, and you're fighting between the mages and the Templars, and so you're like, whose side are you on? And you're trying to decide the whole way through. In this game, I do like your take, though, on how it's like, you don't know how you got this power, and you're trying to figure it out along the way, and you're like this appointed leader, but it's not by choice. Like, you're trying to figure out, am I ready for this? How can I do this? So I like that dynamic. That said, I don't know, I don't have a personal connection because I don't have power personally myself, but I have sisters and brothers that I can relate to, and I felt like taking a more personal, close story to make that meaningful to the player was just a stronger choice, I think, in Dragon Age 2 versus this game.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like, Dragon Age 2, I feel like was a saucier kind of game with with characters who just immediately came off more agreeable and more relatable. Like, did you feel that, like, in Inquisition, everyone feels kind of dry?
I did at first, but I mean, then you run into Varric and Cassandra and very familiar characters. I kind of hope that, the further I go into the game, there's more characters from the past games that come in. Which might bring back that sense of nostalgia.
No comment.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, keep it a secret. But for now, I'm just, I think I'm liking it. I want to, I'm glad I have Varric on my team. I want to see where this story goes if there's other characters that will interest me.
One of the things that I think the Dragon Age Inquisition story is going to be overshadowed, or the little moments are going to be overshadowed by the big moments. I did a moment last night where I had to go drain a dam to get access to this underground cave.
Right.
And you enter this building, and then there's these two kids in there, and they're like, oh, and they were like laying in front of the fire.
Yeah.
And they're like, we didn't know you were gonna be here. And it's like this little tiny story beat.
Yeah.
And like they'd snuck in there to have some hanky panky. and it's super fast. Like it's over, and then I had Dorian with me, and he just laughed, you know, and then it's over. But the game is full of little moments like that. Like I feel like the letters that you find in most games are really boring.
Sure.
But they're like interesting. Like it's really interesting, like the little dramas. Like you'll enter someone's house and find a letter, have like a 1-sentence conversation with somebody. And that's like the BioWare difference, where like lots of RPGs have those moments, but how they're executed on, it depends whether they're interesting or not. And I definitely think that those little moments are fantastic.
So they nailed the little moments, it seems.
I think so.
I totally agree with you actually on that front. Usually those interactions are the things that I forget about, the things that I skip through. Like when I'm playing some big, like a JRPG, for instance, like a big JRPG, almost always the conversations I have with townspeople or people who aren't vital to the main quest are completely throwaway conversations. But like you said here, there's a lot of times where I couldn't tell what was supposed to be a main story and what was supposed to be just a side character because all of them are so interesting and so well fleshed out. I guess for me, one of the things I have a problem with is, and I don't want to talk about who the main villain is in this game. It's a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't want to spoilers there. But my main issue with the story, and maybe you guys will feel this when you've played longer, is that once the person is revealed, once the main villain is out there, they disappear.
Sure.
They're just gone. Like they're just gone until the end of the game. And every event that you see after that, it's like, hey, something bad's happening over here. And you go and you fight through a big story moment there. And then it's like, oh, drat, it was this person all along. And you're like, I need to see the bad guy doing bad guy stuff.
Meanwhile, you need him there to,
I do. I really
to keep
think
convincing you he's the bad guy.
Exactly. I want the main villain to impose their will upon the story so that I really feel a sense of danger and a sense of stakes. I think that Dragon Age Inquisition does all the little things well and draws some interesting characters, even though they're not as immediately likable. But for me, the how and the why of how we get from all the different plot points was a little tenuous for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I do, again, like you've gone through the whole game, so, I defer to you on, that.
Damn right you do.
On that particular point. But what I like about, the flip side of it, or the counter argument, is that, I go into a new region of the map, and it's going to have its own, it's almost like episodic. Like you enter, what's it called, the fallow mire.
Right.
And it's zombies, right? It's undead, and then, you're sort of going through this, you're trying not to step in the water because that makes them rise up, and you have to fight them, and it's always night there. And that's its own little self-contained thing, and it's interesting and well-written and compelling.
And all the zones have that.
It is more video gamey in the sense that then the big bad maybe does or doesn't pop up at the end and be like, ho, I was pulling the strings. But like what you're actually experiencing, I find to be, really sort of rich and detailed. And sure, maybe they should have done more to connect it, sort of have some through lines through it. But I like the story that each separate zone is telling. Like I'm going to go step foot into a new zone, and it's like a whole new set of drama.
Yeah, totally agree. Obviously, this is the largest of all the Dragon Ages that have ever been made, and one of the largest. I'm confident to say, having sunk over 100 hours into it, one of the largest games of any kind ever made.
It's absolutely out of control.
It's dizzying, the size of this game. I guess the question is, though, with a game this big, though, I mean, there's always that. You can always reach a point where you go, hey, is this filler? Is there empty space here? Is it a large world with nothing to do, or does it make purposeful use? What do you think? Does it make purposeful use of the open world, do you think, Naomi?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, the fact that you can pretty much go anywhere. I find the battles too. Sometimes you'll walk in and like there's things happening here and there, and so you have to go through like this different area every time just to finish that side of the quest, whatever it is, and then continue on. I find it does use its space properly.
Well, like, did you play a lot of Skyrim or a good amount?
I played Skyrim.
Cool.
Yeah.
So like by comparison, like did you feel always, if you played Skyrim, you probably felt compelled constantly, hey, I'm going this direction, now I kind of want to go that direction.
Yes.
Did Dragon Age Inquisition, has it so far, you're fairly early in, but has it had that pull on you so far?
I think for now I'm so stuck in the like Dragon Age 2 mode where it's like one thing and then you move on to the next thing and it's like there's this path that's set for you almost. In this game, I feel it's a bit more scattered, which does bring on those feelings of like wanting to move on to other things, while I'm pursuing my quests. But I think that it does do a good job at making sure that every quest you have is distinct to its space in the game, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where Dragon Age Inquisition elevates itself from being, merely a great game into being one of the best RPGs of certainly the last decade. You liked it. You gave it an 8.8, but I'm certainly enjoying it even more than that. It's my game of the year, and I think that's what takes this game from being, great to being something special. It truly feels on a scope and scale, I don't know if I want to say unlike anything I've ever played.
There are not many games you could compare in terms of its scale.
So, and that's not just, scale is nothing if it's not polished.
Right.
If that world doesn't feel dense, and it totally does. There's quests everywhere, but even those quests wouldn't be anything if they weren't interesting and compelling.
Sure.
But they are, and it's very thoughtful in the way that it's laid out. It's not just, hey, find this treasure room. It's, hey, solve these 3 constellation puzzles. They're actually legit puzzles. They're real gameplay. And then they'll triangulate, and then you'll find this treasure. So it's fun gameplay. There's a reward for it at the end. And that's how everything in that game works. You close the Fade Rifts, and that's earning you more things, earning you power and prestige. And these multi-layered game systems all sit on top of this incredibly detailed, rich game world. I'm incredibly impressed with that aspect of Inquisition.
No, I am as well. And to be honest, I mean, the only thing for me that kept it out of 9 range for the most part was just because of my hang-ups with the story that we've talked about in another segment.
Like completely, everyone's opinion is valid. For me personally,
it is a rare achievement.
Couldn't be more enamored.
I still feel that is like you said, it is a rare and singular achievement in terms of the world that it builds and like how it layers all its systems. So like those systems are important. So there's the power system, which is you're earning power as you do various things, and that power is what allows you to open up new missions and operations on the war room.
I want to talk about that power mechanic for a
moment. Let's go into it.
That's when that's the moment where I'm like, this game
is brilliant.
This game is something else.
Yeah.
So every RPG has these side quests. In Skyrim, actually the moment I quit playing Skyrim was a woman wanted me to go into a dungeon and get her spoon, like her special spoon. I'm like, I'm done
Waste
with
of
this.
time.
And so that's always the question. It's like you have the world's gonna end, but then this kid's like, you gotta go get my sheep. He's
and you're
gone.
like, no, I'm not gonna help you.
Like there's never been any reason. Like there's always been this disconnect.
And the payoff is so like weak.
And Inquisition solves that problem because you have to spend power. You have to spend power to do things like open new regions of the map, and you gain that power by completing side quests. All right, I liberated this guy's farm, and
side quests that matter.
Right, and so since I liberated, like it makes sense in the context of the game. Like I liberated
context. That's the whole thing. They contextualize all these things.
Yeah.
Thank you. I understand the Inquisition's on my time. +1 power, and that gets you close to being able to spend that power where you need to spend it to open up elements of the game.
A good example of a mission would be like when you're at the start of the game. You're pretty much told, oh, these people in this, troops of people are
spoilers.
Cold.
Troops. There's troops in this game. There's
so many spoilers right now. They're cold and they need blankets.
Yeah.
And that's totally makes sense. They're in this hill-like area, which is really cold. I mean, you see snow around, so you can get the sense. And they fit it within the context, and it makes sense, and it's something that compels you to continue on and do those side quests.
So normally everyone just does side quests because they're fun, because you want to play the game, because you want to go into the dungeon. But now it's fun, and there's an in-game reason. These layers of game systems that intermesh to sort of make it all feel incredible.
It's also really smart how usually to get to the next major story beat, there's this big like chunk of power you have to earn and spend, like 20 power, 30, 40, 50 power. So basically, they give you all this real estate to work with. There's 10 massive sandboxes to mess with in this game. And after beating the game at 90 hours, there were still sandboxes I hadn't even set foot in. But what's amazing about that is that their idea of how do they make you want to explore these places is completely about progress.
Yeah.
But they tie it back to the side questing because they go, like, hey, if you want to get that 30 power, there's tons of different ways to do it. You can get that 30 power staying almost completely in this one zone. You can get it just splitting your time between these two zones. You can miss, that means that my experience is going to be completely different from your experience. I might not have spent time in the zones that you did because I didn't have to. I had choices about where to earn that power and when to spend it.
It's really a genius RPG.
Like. I guess the final question that I really want to pose to you guys though is, do you think all those systems work together to successfully make you feel like, because the story is not you just as the leader of a merry band of adventurers who's really powerful. Yeah. The idea is that you are starting and leading an entire cultural, martial, social, religious even movement that's supposed to kind of bridge this gap and bring order back to all of Thedas.
Yeah.
Do you think that these systems succeed in making you feel like that decision maker, or is it mostly just kind of smoke and mirrors and you just feel like you're just the badass biggest fighter?
I mean, from the get-go, there's people telling you like, oh, you're a savior. Like, they don't understand where you're coming from, but they have this like idea, and you're told that multiple times throughout the game through the stories that you go through the side missions. So it does make you feel that way. And then of course, as you're going through the game and you're building up your power, like it does make you feel that way. I felt that way anyway.
To me, I absolutely think so. I think it's a perfect balance between when it's me and my party of 4, wrecking shit out in the wilds. Like, I do feel like, okay, this is an RPG with my party and they're making an impact, but then I go back to my home base and I'm sending out my diplomats and saying, all right, solve this dispute over in the other side of the world. And you actually have to sit on the throne and render judgment on people. People from earlier in the game, they're like, do you want to execute this guy or set him free or send him to prison?
It really makes you a decision maker.
You killed this guy's son, and as a result, he committed crime, so what do you want to do with him? And like they give you these heavy as the crown moments. And then it's this gameplay loop of go out in the wilds and have a bunch of fun RPG stuff, and then go back to base and lead this army, this movement, and cultivate your influence and talk to people, say, hey, it's okay. I'm sorry that you had to experience this.
Right. And perhaps most interestingly, it not only gives you the power to make all those decisions, but then almost every single one of them has ramification, and that's wonderful. So that's all we've got for this segment of our review discussion on Dragon Age Inquisition. For more on Dragon Age Inquisition, including our other segments, please stay tuned to IGN.